Ethan Cole was 48 hours from death and didn't know it. The Millionaire CEO dismissed his swollen leg as jet lag, his shortness of breath as stress, his chest pain as heartburn from bad hotel food. The doctors he refused to see could have told him otherwise, that a massive blood clot was traveling through his body like a ticking bomb. But while Ethan conducted million-dollar deals from his penthouse suite at the Grand Ridge Resort, one person had already diagnosed him. Naomi Carter, the black maid who cleaned his room twice a day and recognized every symptom he ignored. She'd seen it before. She knew what came next. And when the crisis hit, she would have seconds to decide: follow hotel protocol and let him die, or break every rule to save the life of a man who didn't even know her name. The morning sun barely touched the peaks of the Colorado mountains when Naomi Carter pulled into the employee parking lot of the Grand Ridge Resort. At 32, she had worked at this luxury hotel for 5 years, arriving each day at 6 in the morning with the same quiet determination that had carried her through life. The February air bit at her cheeks as she hurried through the staff entrance, already mentally organizing her day's tasks. "Morning, Naomi," called out Marcus, the night security guard, as she signed in. "Another early bird day for you." "You know me," Naomi replied with a warm smile, adjusting her uniform. These rooms don't clean themselves. In the staff break room, she found Rosa Gonzalez already pouring coffee, the steam rising between them like a familiar morning ritual. Rosa had started at the hotel just 6 months ago, but the two women had formed an easy friendship. "You hear about the VIP checking in today?" Rosa asked, lowering her voice conspiratorially. "Some tech millionaire. They've got the whole penthouse floor blocked off for him." Naomi shrugged, tying her hair back into a neat bun. "Rich people come and go. We just make sure their sheets are clean and their towels are fluffy." But Rosa wasn't finished. "This one's different. Ethan Cole, you know, the guy who created that app everyone uses? NetConnect or something. Sarah from reception says he's worth like $200 million. Good for him," Naomi said, checking her supply card. "Doesn't change how I do my job." The truth was, Naomi had heard of Ethan Cole. Who hadn't? The man's face had been plastered across business magazines for the past 3 years. Self-made millionaire by 35, revolutionary tech entrepreneur, the golden boy of Silicon Valley who had recently moved his company headquarters to Denver. But to Naomi, he was just going to be another guest who probably wouldn't even notice she existed. The morning passed in its usual rhythm. Naomi moved through the rooms with practiced efficiency, her movements almost choreographed after years of repetition. She had just finished the 3rd floor when her supervisor, Janet, appeared. "Naomi, I need you up on the penthouse level," Janet said, slightly out of breath. "Mr. Cole just arrived, and he's already asking for extra amenities. You know how these types are." Naomi nodded, though she noticed Janet's expression seemed more anxious than usual. "Everything okay? Just be extra careful up there. This guest is important to the hotel. Really important." As Naomi rode the elevator to the top floor, she wondered what made this particular millionaire so special. The doors opened to reveal a hallway that screamed luxury. Marble floors, original artwork on the walls, fresh orchids in crystal vases every few feet. She could hear voices coming from the main suite. "I specifically requested a workspace with proper lighting," a man's voice said, not quite shouting, but carrying an edge of frustration. "This won't do at all." "Of course, Mr. Cole. We'll have maintenance adjust the fixtures immediately," came the nervous reply from Tom, the hotel's general manager himself. Naomi approached with her card, keeping her eyes down as she'd been trained to do around high-profile guests. But as she passed the open doorway, she couldn't help but glance inside. Ethan Cole stood near the window, his back to her, gesturing at something on his laptop. He was tall, maybe 6 feet, with dark hair that looked like he'd been running his hands through it. His suit probably cost more than Naomi made in 3 months, perfectly tailored to his lean frame. But something seemed off. The way he stood, slightly favoring his left leg. The stiffness in his shoulders. "Excuse me," Tom noticed her. "Mr. Cole, this is Naomi, one of our best housekeeping staff. She'll be taking care of your suite during your stay." Ethan turned, and Naomi got her first real look at him. 38 years old according to the magazines, but he looked older today. His face was handsome in that clean-cut, magazine cover way, with sharp cheekbones and intense green eyes. But those eyes looked tired, and his complexion seemed pale, almost gray in the morning light. "Fine," he said dismissively, already turning back to his laptop. "I need fresh towels twice a day. And real coffee, not that instant garbage. Can you handle that?" "Of course, sir," Naomi replied quietly. Tom ushered her out, whispering urgently, "Whatever he needs, just make it happen. He's staying for 2 weeks, and we cannot afford any complaints." Naomi spent the next hour preparing the suite to Ethan's specifications. As she worked, she couldn't shake the image of how he'd looked. She'd seen enough people come through the hotel to recognize exhaustion, but this seemed different. The slight grimace when he'd shifted his weight. The way he pressed his hand briefly to his side when he thought no one was looking. That afternoon, she returned to refresh the towels as requested. Ethan was on a conference call, pacing back and forth in front of the windows. She worked silently, but her trained eye noticed details others might miss. A small prescription bottle in the wastebasket, the label torn off. Faint red blotches on his ankle, visible when his pant leg rode up as he walked. The way he paused mid-sentence to clear his throat, then again a minute later. "The Singapore expansion is non-negotiable," he was saying into his phone. "I don't care if the team thinks we're moving too fast. We need to strike while—" He stopped, coughing slightly. "Sorry, just the altitude here. As I was saying," Naomi finished her work and was about to leave when Ethan ended his call. He looked at her, really looked at her for the first time. "You're very quiet," he observed. "Most of the staff here can't stop chattering." "I figure you're here to work, not to chat with the maid," Naomi replied, then wondered if she'd been too frank. But Ethan almost smiled. "Almost. Exactly right. What's your name again?" "Naomi, sir." "Well, Naomi, I appreciate efficiency." He turned back to his laptop, dismissing her. As she left, Naomi noticed he'd sat down heavily in his chair, rubbing his calf muscle. She'd seen her aunt do the same thing years ago before. She pushed the thought away. Not her business. That evening, during her break, Naomi sat with Rosa in the staff cafeteria. The older woman was full of gossip about the new guest. "Jennifer from room service says he ordered dinner but barely touched it," Rosa said, picking at her sandwich. "Sent back a $200 steak with only one bite taken out." "Maybe he wasn't hungry," Naomi suggested, though she remembered the untouched breakfast tray she'd seen outside another guest's room that morning. "Girl, rich people don't skip $200 steaks unless something's wrong with them, or they're on some weird diet." Rosa leaned in closer. "You know what I think? I think he's here for rehab. You know, the secret kind rich people do." Naomi shook her head. "Didn't seem drunk or high to me. Just tired." "You always notice too much," Rosa laughed. "That's your problem, Naomi. You care about people who don't even know you exist." But Naomi couldn't help it. It was how she'd been raised. Her grandmother, who'd raised her after her parents died in a car accident, had always said, "Baby, God gave you eyes to see and hands to help. Don't waste either gift." Later that night, around 10 o'clock, Naomi was finishing her extended shift when the phone at the housekeeping station rang. It was room service. "Mr. Cole in the penthouse is requesting extra towels," the voice said. "Can someone bring them up?" It was unusual. Guests rarely needed extra towels at night, unless there'd been some kind of spill. Naomi volunteered to go, partly out of curiosity and partly because she was already heading that direction to clock out. She knocked softly on the suite door. "Housekeeping." "Come in," came Ethan's voice, sounding strained. She found him in the living area, sitting on the couch with his leg elevated on the coffee table. He'd changed into casual clothes, expensive athletic wear, and she could see his calf was slightly swollen. "Just leave them in the bathroom," he said without looking up from his laptop. As she placed the towels, Naomi noticed the bathroom counter had several medication bottles, some definitely over-the-counter painkillers. The trash bin had what looked like compression sock packaging. On her way out, she paused. "Mr. Cole, the hotel has an excellent spa with massage therapy. It might help with muscle tension." He looked up sharply. "I didn't ask for medical advice." "Of course not, sir. My apologies." But as she reached the door, he spoke again, softer this time. It's just a cramp. From the flight. These airplane seats are terrible, even in first class. Naomi nodded and left, but she knew airplane cramps didn't last this long or cause that kind of swelling. Her aunt had made the same excuses before her DVT diagnosis. Deep vein thrombosis. The silent killer, the doctor had called it. The next morning arrived gray and overcast, matching Naomi's unsettled mood. She'd barely slept, her mind returning repeatedly to Ethan Cole's swollen calf and labored breathing. It wasn't her place to interfere, she knew that. But something in her gut wouldn't let it go. She arrived at work to find the hotel buzzing with activity. Ethan had apparently been up since 4 in the morning, conducting international calls. The night shift reported he'd ordered coffee 3 times between midnight and dawn. Man never sleeps, Marcus told her as she signed in. Security says his lights were on all night. That can't be healthy. Naomi began her rounds, saving the penthouse for last. When she finally reached Ethan's suite at 9 o'clock, she found something concerning. 2 breakfast trays sat outside his door, both virtually untouched. The tea was cold, maybe 1 sip taken. The food had been moved around, but not really eaten. She knocked and entered with her passkey when no one answered. The suite was empty, but evidence of Ethan's presence was everywhere. Papers scattered across the dining table, 3 laptops open to different screens, empty coffee cups creating rings on the expensive wood furniture. As she cleaned, Naomi couldn't help but notice more troubling signs. The bed had barely been slept in, just the corner turned down as if he'd laid on top of the covers briefly. There were more medication bottles in the bedroom, and a heating pad left on the armchair. She was changing the sheets when she accidentally knocked over Ethan's gym bag with her cart. Its contents spilled across the floor, and she hurried to gather everything before he returned. Compression socks, several of them. A prescription bottle that rolled under the bed. She retrieved it and glimpsed the label before replacing it. Blood thinners, but an old prescription dated 3 months ago with most pills still inside. There was also a crumpled piece of paper, what looked like a doctor's note or prescription. She didn't mean to read it, but the words follow-up recommended and elevated risk factors jumped out at her before she stuffed it back in the bag. Find what you're looking for. Naomi jumped, spinning around to find Ethan standing in the doorway. She hadn't heard him come in. I'm so sorry, Mr. Cole. I knocked over your bag by accident. I was just. It's fine, he said, but his voice was cold. He walked past her to the desk, and she noticed it immediately. He was limping. Not obviously, but there was a definite hitch in his step that hadn't been there yesterday. I'll be out of your way in just a moment, Naomi said, quickly finishing with the bed. Ethan sat down at his desk, immediately absorbed in his work. But Naomi watched from the corner of her eye as he reached down to massage his calf, his face tightening with discomfort. She was about to leave when he suddenly spoke. Naomi, right? Yes, sir. Do you know if the hotel has a doctor on call? Her heart jumped. Maybe he was taking this seriously. Yes, sir. Dr. Harrison. Should I call him for you? No, Ethan said quickly. Too quickly. I was just curious. Hotels this size usually have medical staff. Dr. Harrison is very discreet. If that's a concern, Naomi offered carefully. Ethan's jaw tightened. I said I was just curious. That afternoon, Naomi was delivering fresh towels to the floor below the penthouse when she heard voices in the stairwell. She recognized Dr. Harrison's distinctive British accent. Told him he needs proper testing, the doctor was saying to someone. But these executive types never listen. They think they're invincible. Mr. Cole seemed pretty adamant that it's just stress. Another voice replied, Tom, the general manager. Stress doesn't cause those symptoms. I was in there for all of 10 minutes before he practically threw me out. Said he didn't need a doctor telling him to slow down. Naomi's worst fears were confirmed. Ethan had called the doctor, but then refused treatment. She continued with her duties, but her mind was racing. Why would someone ignore such obvious warning signs? During her lunch break, she sat in the corner of the cafeteria with her phone, Googling symptoms. Leg swelling, check. Shortness of breath, check. Pale complexion, check. Every medical website said the same thing. Seek immediate medical attention. What are you reading so intensely? Rosa asked, sliding into the seat across from her. Just research, Naomi said, putting her phone away. About our millionaire guest? Rosa's eyes gleamed with interest. Girl, I told you not to get involved. These rich people have their own doctors, their own everything. They don't need us worrying about them. But what if? What if nothing? You save your worry for people who appreciate it. Like your brother. How's he doing at college, by the way? Naomi smiled, despite her concern. Good. Great, actually. Made the dean's list last semester. See? That's where your energy should go. Not on some workaholic who probably hasn't said thank you once since he got here. But Rosa was wrong about that. That evening, when Naomi delivered the second set of towels Ethan had requested, he did thank her. He was on a video call when she entered, visible on a large screen, talking to what looked like a boardroom full of people. The quarterly projections are off, he was saying, then paused to cough. Excuse me. As I was saying, the projections, another cough longer this time. He muted himself, the coughing fit continuing for several seconds. Naomi quietly placed a glass of water on his desk. He looked up, surprised, and mouthed, "Thank you," before unmuting to continue his presentation. But she noticed he was gripping the edge of the desk, his knuckles white, and his breathing seemed labored even after the coughing stopped. The call went on for another hour. Naomi had finished her duties, but lingered in the hallway, pretending to organize her cart. She could hear Ethan through the door, his voice growing progressively hoarse. Finally, the call ended. She knocked softly. Mr. Cole? I have some herbal tea that might help with your throat. Comein. She found him slumped in his chair, looking exhausted. For a moment, his guard was down, and she saw not a millionaire CEO, but a sick man pushing himself too hard. You didn't have to wait, he said, accepting the tea. My grandmother always said tea fixes everything, Naomi replied, then hesitated before adding, Mr. Cole, forgive me for overstepping, but you don't look well. His walls immediately went back up. I'm fine. Just tired. These international calls at all hours mess with your system. Of course, sir. She turned to leave, but his voice stopped her. Naomi? The tea, that was thoughtful. Thank you. Over the next 2 days, Naomi watched the patterns intensify. Ethan canceled his scheduled spa treatments. He'd booked several hiking excursions with the hotel's adventure package, but backed out of all of them. The room service staff reported he was ordering less and less food, and what he did order came back barely touched. She started doing small things without being asked, leaving extra honey and lemon by his coffee maker, making sure his room had a humidifier running for his cough, placing his heating pad where he could easily reach it from the bed. On the 4th day of his stay, she overheard something that truly alarmed her. She was in the supply closet next to his suite when she heard him on the phone. I know the Tokyo meeting is important, he was saying, but I might need to postpone. There was a long pause. No, you're right. We can't show weakness to investors. I'll be there. But then she heard a thump, like he'd collapsed into a chair, followed by labored breathing. That evening, she found Rosa in the break room and tried one more time. I think Mr. Cole is really sick, she said. Like dangerously sick. Rosa sighed. Naomi, honey, I love your big heart, but you need to be careful. You start acting like you know better than these rich folks about their own health, and you'll find yourself out of a job. Remember what happened to Patricia? She tried to give that senator's wife advice about her drinking, and she was gone next day. This is different. No, it's not. It's exactly the same. You're a maid, Naomi. A good one, the best one here, but still a maid. People like Ethan Cole have entire teams of people managing their health. If he's sick, someone else will handle it. But Naomi knew Rosa was wrong. She'd seen enough in her life to know that money didn't make people invincible, and pride could be deadlier than any disease. Her own aunt had nearly died because she was too proud to admit she needed help, too convinced that successful people didn't get sick. That night, unable to sleep again, Naomi made a decision. She wouldn't overstep, wouldn't force help on someone who didn't want it. But she would watch. She would be ready. Because every instinct she had was screaming that Ethan Cole was running out of time. And when the crisis came, and she was certain it would come, someone needed to be prepared to act. The next morning would prove her right. But for now, she lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, hoping she wouldn't be too late. The fifth night of Ethan Cole's stay at the Grand Ridge Resort brought an unseasonable warmth to the mountain air, making the luxury hotel feel stuffy despite its state-of-the-art climate control. Naomi had just finished her evening rounds on the fourth floor when she heard it, a loud thump from directly above her, unmistakably from Ethan's penthouse suite. She froze, listening. The couple in the room she was servicing didn't seem to notice, too engrossed in their television program. But Naomi knew that sound. It wasn't furniture being moved or something being dropped. It was heavier, more final. The sound of a body hitting the floor. Without hesitation, she abandoned her cart and rushed to the elevator, her master key card already in hand. The elevator seemed to take forever, each floor counting up with agonizing slowness. When the doors finally opened on the penthouse level, she practically ran down the hallway. She knocked firmly on Ethan's door. "Mr. Cole? Housekeeping. Is everything all right?" Silence. She knocked again, louder. "Mr. Cole, I heard a noise. I'm coming in to check on you." Using her key card, she pushed open the door. The suite was dimly lit, only the desk lamp providing any illumination. At first, she didn't see him. Then she spotted a foot visible behind the couch. "Mr. Cole." She rushed around the furniture to find Ethan on the floor, pushing himself up to a sitting position, his face flushed and covered in perspiration. His breathing came in short, painful gasps. "I'm fine," he managed to say, though his voice was barely above a whisper. Just tripped." Naomi knelt beside him, her trained eye taking in everything. His right leg was visibly swollen now, even through his pants. His hands trembled as he tried to steady himself against the couch. Most alarming was his breathing, shallow, rapid, like he couldn't get enough air. "Let me help you up," she said, moving to support him. "I said I'm fine," he snapped, but when he tried to stand on his own, his leg buckled immediately. Naomi caught him before he fell again, her arm around his waist. He was heavier than he looked, but she was stronger than her small frame suggested. Years of moving furniture and hauling cleaning equipment had given her a wiry strength. "Just lean on me," she said firmly, using the same tone she used with her stubborn brother when he was sick. "We're going to get you to the couch." For once, Ethan didn't argue. He let her guide him to the sofa, collapsing onto it with obvious relief. Up close, she could see his lips had a slight bluish tinge. Her aunt's lips had looked the same way before they'd rushed her to the hospital. "Mr. Cole, I need to call Dr. Harrison," Naomi said, already reaching for the suite's phone. "No." His hand shot out, grabbing her wrist. His grip was weak, but desperate. "No doctors. I have a call with Tokyo in an hour. I just need to rest." "Sir, with respect, you need medical attention. Your leg, your breathing. It's just stress," he interrupted, releasing her wrist. "The altitude, the travel, the lack of sleep. I've been through worse." Naomi stood there, torn between respecting his wishes and knowing he needed help. She compromised. "At least let me get you some water and help you elevate that leg." He nodded, too exhausted to argue further. She quickly gathered pillows from the bedroom, propping his leg up on the coffee table. The swelling was even worse than she'd thought. His ankle was nearly twice its normal size. She brought him water, which he sipped gratefully, and a cool washcloth for his forehead. "You don't have to stay," he said after a few minutes, some color returning to his face. "I'm sure you have other rooms to clean." "My shift is almost over," Naomi lied. She still had 2 hours left. "I'll just tidy up a bit while you rest." She busied herself around the suite, but kept him in her peripheral vision. His breathing was still labored, and every few minutes, he would unconsciously rub his chest. She noticed a notepad on his desk with scribbled notes. Chest pressure, day 3, and shortness of breath worse were among the notations. "You've been tracking your symptoms," she said, not quite making a question. Ethan's eyes snapped open. He'd been dozing. "What?" "The notepad. You've been writing down what you're feeling." His jaw tightened. "You had no right to read that." "You're right, I didn't." "But Mr. Cole, if you're documenting symptoms, you know something's wrong. Why won't you see a doctor?" For a long moment, he was silent. Then, Surprisingly, he answered, "Because doctors mean tests. Tests mean hospitals. Hospitals mean the press finds out that Ethan Cole is sick. And that means my company's stock tanks, investors panic, and everything I've built over the last 10 years could crumble." "Your life is worth more than stock prices," Naomi said softly. He laughed, but it was bitter. "You don't understand. I have 3,000 employees depending on me. Families who need those jobs. If I show weakness now, during the merger talks..." He shook his head. "I can't. I just need to get through the next week." Naomi wanted to argue, but she recognized the stubborn set of his jaw. Her grandmother had been the same way, refusing to burden anyone with her problems until it was almost too late. "My aunt almost died from a blood clot," she said quietly. "Started just like this. Swollen leg, shortness of breath. She ignored it for weeks, said it was just for being on her feet too much at work. One day, the clot broke free and went to her lungs. If my cousin hadn't been there when she collapsed..." Ethan was watching her now, really looking at her for perhaps the first time. "What happened?" "She survived. Barely. The doctor said another hour and she would have been gone. She spent 3 weeks in a hospital, months recovering. But she lived." Naomi met his eyes. Because someone was there when it mattered. Someone who didn't let her stubbornness kill her. "It's not the same thing," Ethan said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Maybe not. But Mr. Cole, those symptoms you're tracking, they're not from stress. And deep down, I think you know that." Before he could respond, his phone rang. The Tokyo call. He reached for it, but his hand was shaking so badly he nearly dropped it. "Ethan Cole," he answered, trying to project strength. "Yes, I'm ready for the briefing." Naomi watched as he struggled through the call. Every few sentences, he had to pause to catch his breath. At one point, he muted the phone to cough violently into his handkerchief. When he pulled it away, Naomi saw spots of red. Blood. She must have gasped because Ethan looked at her sharply, shaking his head in warning. He unmuted the phone and continued talking, but his voice was weaker now, strained. The call mercifully ended after 20 minutes. As soon as he hung up, Ethan slumped back against the couch, exhausted. "You're coughing up blood," Naomi said. It wasn't a question. "It's nothing. Just irritation from all the coughing." Mr. Cole, Miss Carter, his use of her last name, which he'd never done before, stopped her. "I appreciate your concern. I do. But this is my decision. My risk to take." Naomi stood up, frustration and fear warring in her chest. "And what about the people who'll have to live with the consequences of your decision? What about your employees when their CEO drops dead because he was too proud to get help? What about..." She stopped herself, realizing she was about to say, "What about the people who care about you?" which was presumptuous and probably inaccurate anyway. "What about what?" he asked, genuinely curious. "Nothing. You're right. It's your decision." She gathered her supplies. "I'll send someone up with fresh towels in the morning." She was at the door when he spoke again. "Naomi..." She turned back. "Thank you. For helping me up. For caring. Even if I don't deserve it. Everyone deserves someone caring about them, Mr. Cole." She left before he could respond, but she didn't go far. She went down one floor and found an empty room that was being renovated, positioning herself where she could watch the elevator and stairs. If something happened, she'd know. 2 hours passed. She saw Dr. Harrison arrive around 10 o'clock, presumably called by Ethan after all. But he left after just 15 minutes, looking frustrated. Through the thin ceiling, she could hear raised voices, though not the words. At midnight, she finally went home, but sleep eluded her. She kept thinking about the blood on the handkerchief, the swelling in his leg, the desperation in his eyes when he'd grabbed her wrist. She thought about her aunt, how close they'd come to losing her. The next morning, she arrived at work earlier than usual, going straight to the penthouse level. The night security guard, James, was just finishing his rounds. "How was the night?" she asked casually. "Quiet, except for Mr. Cole." Man was pacing his room until about 3 a.m. Could hear him through the door. Sounded like he was in pain, too, groaning and such. Naomi's heart sank. She waited until 7 to knock on his door with the breakfast service. There was no answer, so she let herself in. She found him in the bedroom, fully dressed but lying on top of the covers, one arm thrown over his eyes. His breathing was audible from the doorway, raspy and labored. "Mr. Cole." He moved his arms slightly to look at her. "What time is it?" 7:15, sir." "Damn, I have a video conference at 8. He tried to sit up but immediately fell back, his face contorting in pain. "Sir, you can't do a video call like this." "I have to." He tried again, this time managing to swing his legs over the side of the bed. But when he stood, he swayed dangerously. Naomi rushed forward, steadying him. "Mr. Cole, please. You need help." "I need to make this call," he said through gritted teeth. "It's with the board. If I miss it, they'll start asking questions." "Then do it from bed. Tell them you're reviewing documents or something." He looked at her, surprised by the suggestion. That might work. She helped him settle back against the pillows, positioning his laptop on a breakfast tray across his lap. She noticed his leg was even more swollen than yesterday, the skin tight and discolored. "I'll be right outside if you need anything," she said. During the call, she could hear him struggling. His voice kept fading, and twice she heard him mute to deal with coughing fits. After 45 minutes, it finally ended. She entered to find him slumped against the pillows, his laptop sliding off the tray. His face was gray, and when she touched his forehead to steady the computer, his skin was clammy and cold. "Mr. Cole, I'm calling an ambulance." "No," he whispered, but there was no fight left in his voice. "Sir, respectfully, you're dying, and I won't stand by and watch it happen." He looked at her then, really looked at her, and she saw fear in his eyes for the first time. I can't breathe properly," he admitted. "It feels like there's a weight on my chest." "That's because there probably is a clot pressing on your lungs." She was already reaching for the phone. "I'm calling for help." "Wait." He grabbed her hand weakly. "My assistant. Michael. Don't let him know. He'll call the press." "I won't let anyone call anyone until you're safe," Naomi promised. As she dialed 911, she noticed Ethan was still holding her hand. His grip was weak but desperate, like she was his lifeline. And maybe, she thought as she gave the dispatcher the hotel's address, she was. The morning of Ethan Cole's 7th day at the Grand Ridge Resort started like a nightmare unfolding in slow motion. Naomi had just clocked in at 6 a.m. when her phone buzzed with a text from James, the night security guard who was just ending his shift. "Your millionaire didn't answer when room service knocked. Used override. He's on the floor." Naomi dropped everything and ran. She didn't wait for the elevator, taking the stairs 2 at a time, her heart pounding with each step. 7 floors had never seemed so high. By the time she burst through the stairwell door onto the penthouse level, her lungs were burning, but she didn't slow down. The suite door was ajar, a room service cart abandoned in the hallway. She could hear voices inside, panicked, uncertain voices. She pushed through to find chaos. Ethan was on the floor near the bathroom, his body twisted awkwardly, one leg grotesquely swollen and discolored. 2 room service attendants stood frozen, while James knelt beside Ethan, clearly out of his depth. "He's breathing, but barely," James said when he saw her. "I didn't know whether to move him or—" "Don't move him," Naomi commanded, dropping to her knees beside Ethan. His eyes were open but unfocused, his lips now distinctly blue. Each breath was a desperate, wheezing struggle. She'd seen enough medical emergencies in her life to know this was bad. Really bad. "Call the front desk," she ordered one of the room service attendants. "Tell them we need an ambulance immediately. Possible pulmonary embolism." "But Mr. Thompson said we need authorization before," the young man stammered. "I don't care what Thompson said." Naomi's voice cracked like a whip. "This man is dying. Call 911 now, or I'll hold you personally responsible for what happens." The attendant scrambled for his phone. "James, go to the supply closet on the 3rd floor. There's a portable oxygen tank in the emergency kit. Run." James didn't question her, just took off sprinting. Naomi turned her attention back to Ethan. His eyes had found hers, and she saw terror there. His mouth moved, trying to form words, but no sound came out. "Don't try to talk," she said, taking his hand. "Just focus on breathing. In and out. Help is coming." His hand gripped hers with surprising strength, his eyes pleading. She understood what he couldn't say. Don't let me die. You're not dying on my watch, Mr. Cole, she said firmly. I didn't spend a week watching you ignore every warning sign just to lose you now. Tom Thompson, the hotel manager, burst through the door, his face red with exertion and anger. What is going on here? Who authorized an ambulance? I did, Naomi said without looking up from Ethan. You don't have that authority. Mr. Cole specifically requested no medical intervention without his express consent. This is a liability nightmare. This is a man dying, Naomi interrupted, her voice deadly calm. And if you try to stop that ambulance, I'll make sure every news outlet in the country knows that the Grand Ridge Resort let a guest die because of paperwork. Thompson's mouth opened and closed like a fish, but before he could respond, James returned with the oxygen tank. Naomi had helped her enough times to know the basics. She carefully placed the mask over Ethan's face, adjusting the flow. Slow breaths. She coached him. Don't fight it. The oxygen seemed to help slightly. His color improved marginally, though his breathing remained labored. She kept her fingers on his pulse, rapid and thready, but present. Where are the paramedics? She demanded. 5 minutes out, someone answered. 5 minutes felt like 5 hours. Naomi kept talking to Ethan, her voice calm and steady, telling him about her brother's latest college adventure, about the sunrise she'd seen that morning, anything to keep him focused and fighting. My aunt survived this, she told him. She was stubborn like you, ignored it too long, but she survived. You will too. Thompson had retreated to the doorway, frantically making phone calls, probably to the hotel's lawyers. 2 junior housekeeping staff had arrived, Maria and David, and Naomi immediately put them to work. Maria, go downstairs and make sure the paramedics know exactly where to come. David, clear everything from the hallway to make room for the stretcher. They jumped to obey. There is something about Naomi's calm authority that made people listen, even though she was just a maid who had no real power in the hotel hierarchy. Ethan's assistant, Michael, chose that moment to arrive, having apparently been notified by Thompson. He was a thin, nervous-looking man in his 30s, his face a mask of barely controlled panic. Oh God, what happened? Is he conscious? I need to call the board, the investors. You need to get out of the way, Naomi said sharply. The only call that matters right now is the one that gets him to the hospital alive. You don't understand, Michael said, pulling out his phone. If news of this gets out, the stock will crater. I have to do damage control. Naomi stood up so fast that Michael actually stepped back. If you make one call that isn't to help save his life, I will personally throw that phone out the window. Are we clear? You can't threaten me. Do you know who I am? You're the assistant who's about to explain to everyone why you prioritize stock prices over your boss's life. Naomi shot back. How do you think that will play in the press? Before Michael could respond, the paramedics arrived. 2 of them, moving with the efficient speed of professionals who'd seen it all. They immediately took over, checking Ethan's vitals, starting in 4, preparing him for transport. Probable P. One of them said to the other, We need to move fast. As they lifted Ethan onto the stretcher, his hand shot out, grabbing Naomi's wrist. Please, he whispered, the word barely audible through the oxygen mask. Come with me. The paramedic looked at her. Are you family? She's coming, Ethan managed to say, using what seemed like the last of his strength. I'll follow in my car, Naomi said, but Ethan's grip tightened. No, please. The lead paramedic made a decision. You can ride with us. We might need information about what happened. As they wheeled Ethan toward the elevator, Michael tried to follow. I should be the one. Mr. Cole asked for me, Naomi said firmly. You can follow in your car. In the ambulance, everything moved fast. The paramedics worked over Ethan, calling out medical terms Naomi only half understood. Blood pressure numbers that made them exchange worried looks. Oxygen levels that had one of them increasing the flow. How long has he been symptomatic? One asked her. At least a week. Swollen leg, shortness of breath, chest pain. He's been coughing up blood since yesterday. Why didn't he seek treatment sooner? He's stubborn, Naomi said, holding Ethan's hand as the ambulance wove through traffic, sirens wailing, and scared of appearing weak. Ethan's eyes found hers. Through the mask, She could see him try and smile. It was a ghost of an expression, but it was there. "You're going to be okay," she told him, squeezing his hand. "You're too stubborn to die." At the hospital, they whisked him away immediately. Naomi found herself in a waiting room, suddenly unsure what to do. She wasn't family. She wasn't even really a friend. She was just a maid who'd refused to look away. A doctor appeared after what felt like hours, but was probably only 30 minutes. "Are you the one who came with Mr. Cole?" "Yes." "Is he?" "He's stable. You were right about the pulmonary embolism. A massive one. If he'd waited another hour or two." The doctor shook his head. "Your quick action saved his life." Relief flooded through Naomi so intensely that she had to sit down. "He's asking for you," the doctor added. "He's sedated but conscious. Room 314. Naomi made her way to the room, her legs shaky. She found Ethan connected to multiple machines for lines running into both arms, but his color was already better. His eyes were closed, but they opened when she entered. "You saved my life," he said, his voice hoarse but clear. "You almost killed yourself with stubbornness," she replied, surprising herself with the anger in her voice. "Do you have any idea how close you came?" The doctor explained. He paused, seeming to gather strength. "I'm sorry. You tried to warn me. Everyone tried to warn you. You just wouldn't listen." "No," he corrected. "Everyone else gave up when I pushed back. You didn't." "What?" Naomi considered the question. "My grandmother always said that sometimes caring about someone means doing what's right for them, even when they don't want you to." "Your grandmother sounds wise." She was. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Ethan spoke again. "Michael is probably having a meltdown. Your assistant was more worried about stock prices than your life." Ethan's expression darkened. "That doesn't surprise me. Michael has always been about the numbers." He paused, studying her. "You stood up to him. To Thompson, too, for what the paramedics said. They were in the way. You took charge. In a crisis, you took charge and saved my life." His eyes were intense despite the medication. "I won't forget that, Naomi." Before she could respond, Michael burst through the door, phone in hand, already talking rapidly. "Ethan, thank God. I've managed to keep it out of the press so far, but we need a statement. The Tokyo team is asking questions, and the board." "Get out," Ethan said quietly. Michael stopped mid-sentence. "What?" "I said get out. You're fired. You can't be serious. You're on medication, not thinking clearly." "I'm thinking more clearly than I have in years," Ethan said. "When I was dying, your first thought was the stock price. You're dumb, Michael. Security will escort you to clear out your desk." Michael's face went through several shades of red before he stormed out, already making angry phone calls. Ethan turned back to Naomi. "I'm going to need a new assistant. Someone I can trust. Someone who sees what others miss and isn't afraid to act on it. Mr. Cole, the job is yours if you want it. I know it's a big change from housekeeping, but I need to think about it," Naomi said, overwhelmed. "This is a lot." "Of course. Take all the time you need." He paused, then added, "But Naomi, whatever you decide, thank you. You didn't just save my life. You reminded me that it's worth saving." A nurse came in to check his vitals, and Naomi took that as her cue to leave. As she walked back through the hospital corridors, she felt the adrenaline finally leaving her system, replaced by a bone-deep exhaustion. Her phone buzzed. It was Rosa, along with about 20 other messages from coworkers. "Girl, what happened? Thompson is losing his mind, and everyone's saying you saved the millionaire's life." Naomi smiled despite her exhaustion. She had saved his life. The maid who everyone said cared too much had seen what others missed and acted when it mattered most. As she stepped outside into the morning sun, she realized something had fundamentally changed. Not just for Ethan, but for her too. She had found her voice, her authority, her purpose. And whatever happened next, she would never be just the quiet maid in the background again. The elevator at Denver Presbyterian Hospital moved with agonizing slowness as Naomi made her way to the cardiac unit. It had been 3 days since Ethan's emergency, and she'd finally worked up the courage to accept his assistant's invitation to visit. Not Michael. He was gone. But Sarah, a temporary replacement from Ethan's company who seemed genuinely concerned about her boss's well-being. Naomi still wore her hotel uniform, having come straight from her shift. She debated changing, but decided against it. She wasn't trying to be someone she wasn't. As the elevator doors opened on the 5th floor, she saw the difference immediately. This wasn't the emergency ward where she'd last seen Ethan. This was where wealthy patients recovered. Private rooms that looked more like luxury hotel suites, nurses who spoke in hushed tones, fresh flowers everywhere. "You must be Naomi," a woman said, approaching with a warm smile. She was in her 50s, professionally dressed, with kind eyes. "I'm Dr. Rebecca Sterling, Ethan's physician. He's been asking for you every day." "How is he?" Naomi asked, following the doctor down the pristine hallway. "Recovering well, physically. The clot was massive, one of the worst I've seen in someone his age. But we caught it in time, thanks to you." Dr. Sterling paused outside room 514. "He told me you recognized the symptoms when everyone else missed them. My aunt had something similar. I just noticed the patterns." "Well, you're noticing save his life. He's lucky to have someone who cared enough to push past his stubbornness." The doctor's expression grew more serious. "Fair warning, he's been difficult, trying to work from his bed, arguing with nurses, demanding to be discharged. Maybe you can talk some sense into him." Naomi knocked softly and entered. The room was indeed more like a high-end hotel suite than a hospital room, with a sitting area, large windows overlooking the city, and medical equipment discreetly tucked away. Ethan was propped up in bed, 3 laptops arranged around him, talking rapidly into a Bluetooth headset. He looked better than when she'd last seen him, color in his face, breathing normally, but still pale, still fragile-looking in a hospital gown. When he saw her, his whole demeanor changed. The hard business edge softened. "I'll call you back," he said into the headset, ending the call without waiting for a response. "Naomi, you came. Your assistant said you wanted to see me." "Sarah." "Yes. She's temporary, but competent." He gestured to a chair beside his bed. "Please sit. You're making me nervous, standing there like you're about to run." Naomi sat, noticing the 4 lines still attached to his arms, the compression devices on his legs, the subtle beep of monitors. "Dr. Sterling says you're being a difficult patient." Ethan had the grace to look slightly ashamed. "I have a company to run. The merger with Pacific Tech is at a critical stage. I can't just lie here." "You almost died because you couldn't just lie down and rest," Naomi pointed out. "Maybe it's time to learn." He studied her for a moment. "You're different, more assertive than before. Almost watching someone die changes you," she said simply. "Is that what happened? You watched me almost die. I watched you ignore every warning sign for a week. I watched you choose work over your life, repeatedly. And yes, I watched you turn blue on that hotel room floor, fighting for every breath." Her voice caught slightly. "Do you know how terrifying that was?" Ethan's expression softened further. "I'm sorry. I didn't think anyone would care. That's the saddest thing you've said yet." They sat in silence for a moment. Then Ethan spoke again, his voice quieter. "The doctor ran a lot of tests. The embolism was just the crisis point. Apparently, I've been slowly killing myself for years. High blood pressure, pre-diabetic, vitamin deficiencies, chronic dehydration. My body was breaking down, and I didn't even notice." "Or you noticed and ignored it," Naomi suggested gently. "Maybe." He looked out the window. "My father died at 42. Heart attack at his desk. They found him the next morning, still clutching his phone. He'd been in the middle of a deal." Naomi waited, sensing there was more. "I always swore I wouldn't be like him. Wouldn't choose work over everything else. But somewhere along the way, I became exactly what I hated. Worse even, at least he had a family to ignore. I just had nothing. No one." "That's not true anymore," Naomi said softly. He looked at her, something vulnerable in his eyes. "Isn't it? You're here because you're a good person who saved my life. But once I'm better, you'll go back to your life, and I'll go back to mine. Is that what you want?" "No." The word came out fast, surprising them both. "No." "Naomi, you asked why I wanted to see you. It wasn't just to thank you, though God knows I owe you everything. It's because in the ambulance, when I thought I was dying, the only thing I could think about was that I was glad you were there. Not my assistant, not my board members, not any of the people who were supposed to matter in my life. You, the woman who saw me, really saw me, when everyone else just saw the CEO. Before Naomi could respond, the door burst open. A man in an expensive suit strode in, followed by two others. The lead man was in his 60s, silver-haired, with the bearing of someone used to being obeyed. "Ethan," he said, ignoring Naomi completely. "We need to talk about the Tokyo situation." "Richard," Ethan's voice went cold. "I'm in the middle of something. Your little medical drama has put the entire merger at risk. The Japanese are questioning your ability to lead. We need you back in the office, showing strength." "I'm in the hospital, Richard. I nearly died." "Nearly doesn't count in business." Richard finally noticed Naomi, his eyes dismissing her instantly. "Could you give us the room? This is a private conversation." "She stays," Ethan said firmly. Richard's eyebrows rose. "I don't think you understand the sensitivity." "I understand perfectly. Naomi stays, or you leave." The tension in the room was palpable. Richard's face reddened. "Who is this woman?" "The person who saved my life, which is more than anyone from the company did." "Ethan, be reasonable. We're talking about a $2 billion deal. We're talking about my life," Ethan interrupted, "which, I'm realizing, has value beyond dollar signs." Richard turned his cold gaze on Naomi. "How much?" "Excuse me," Naomi said. "How much to leave? To sign an NDA and disappear? 10,000? 20? Naomi stood up slowly, her voice steady despite her anger. "Not everyone has a price tag, Mr. Richard Blackwood, chairman of the board." "Mr. Blackwood, I'm not here for money. I'm here because Ethan asked me to come." Ethan is clearly not thinking clearly. "The medication. Get out." Ethan's voice was quiet but firm. "Ethan, you just tried to buy off the woman who saved my life like she was some kind of problem to be solved. Get out, Richard. And if you ever speak to or about Naomi that way again, you'll be looking for a new CEO." Richard's face went through several colors before he turned on his heel and left, his colleagues trailing behind him. "I'm sorry about that," Ethan said once they were gone. "Is that normal? People trying to buy their way out of situations?" "In my world, yes. Everything has a price. Everyone can be bought." He paused. "Except you, apparently." "My grandmother raised me better than that." "Tell me about her." "Your grandmother." So Naomi did. She talked about growing up in a small apartment in Chicago, about her grandmother working 3 jobs to keep them afloat after her parents died, about lessons learned over homework at a kitchen table, about Sunday dinners and church services, and the importance of seeing people, really seeing them. "She sounds amazing," Ethan said when she finished. She died 2 years ago, peaceful, in her sleep. The whole neighborhood came to her funeral. Standing room only. She didn't have money or power, but she had something more valuable. What? People who genuinely loved her. A life that mattered to others. Ethan was quiet for a long moment. "I don't think anyone would come to my funeral except to make sure I was really dead so they could take over my company." "That's not true, isn't it? Name one person who cares about me as a person, not as a CEO or a meal ticket." Naomi met his eyes. "You're looking at her." The moment stretched between them, heavy with possibility. Then Ethan's monitor started beeping, and a nurse rushed in. "Mr. Cole, your heart rate is elevated. Are you experiencing pain?" "No, I'm fine. Just emotional." The nurse checked his vitals, adjusted his four, and gave Naomi a meaningful look. "Perhaps we should keep visits calm." After she left, Ethan looked embarrassed. "Apparently, I can't even have a conversation without setting off alarms. You need a rest. Real rest, not working from bed rest. Will you come back? Tomorrow? I have to work. Please." He reached out, taking her hand. "I know I have no right to ask, but you're the only real thing in my life right now. The only person who doesn't want something from me." "I do want something from you," Naomi said. His face fell. "Oh, I want you to get better. Really better. Not just physically, but all of it. I want you to find a life worth living, not just a company worth running." "I don't know how to do that." "Then maybe it's time to learn." She squeezed his hand and stood to leave. At the door, she turned back. "And Ethan, that job offer you made? I'm thinking about it. But if I take it, It won't be as your assistant. It would be as your, I don't know what to call it, your life coach, your reality checker. My friend? He suggested hopefully. Yeah, your friend. Naomi arrived at the Grand Ridge Resort the next morning to find chaos. The employee break room was buzzing with gossip, and the moment she walked in, everyone went silent. What? She asked, heading to her locker. Rosa approached her, looking worried. Thompson wants to see you. Immediately. About what? About you becoming some kind of celebrity hero. That's what. It's all over the news. Heroic Maid saves Millionaire's life. There are reporters in the lobby. Naomi's stomach dropped. She'd hoped to keep a low profile, to return to normal life while she figured out what to do about Ethan's offer. Apparently, that wasn't going to be possible. Tom Thompson's office was on the second floor, overlooking the lobby. Naomi could see the crowd of reporters below, cameras and microphones at the ready. Thompson sat behind his desk, his face a mask of controlled fury. Sit, he commanded. Naomi sat. Do you have any idea what you've done? He began without preamble. You violated at least 6 hotel policies. You called emergency services without guest consent. You entered a guest room without proper authorization. You made medical decisions you're not qualified to make. I saved a man's life. You created a liability nightmare. Thompson slammed his hand on the desk. What if you'd been wrong? What if moving him had caused more damage? The hotel could be sued into bankruptcy. But I wasn't wrong. That's not the point. You're a maid, Miss Carter. Your job is to clean rooms, not play doctor. My job is to take care of guests. Your job is whatever I say it is. And right now, your job is in serious jeopardy. He pulled out a folder. There's going to be a disciplinary hearing tomorrow. The hotel's board of directors wants answers. In the meantime, you're suspended without pay. Naomi felt the blood drain from her face. Suspended? But you overstepped, Miss Carter. Dramatically. And now the hotel is in the spotlight for all the wrong reasons. We have policies for a reason. The reason would have led to Ethan Cole dying. That would have been his choice. Now get your things and leave. Don't speak to any reporters on your way out. Naomi stood, her legs shaky. What about my brother's tuition? I need this job. You should have thought about that before playing hero. She left his office in a daze. In the break room, her coworkers looked at her with a mix of sympathy and fear. Rosa helped her clean out her locker. This is bullshit, Rosa muttered. You saved that man's life, and they're punishing you for it. Thompson's right, though. I did violate policy. Screw policy. You did the right thing. As Naomi tried to leave through the employee exit, she found it blocked by reporters who had figured out her escape route. Cameras flashed. Microphones were shoved in her face. Ms. Carter, how does it feel to be a hero? Did Ethan Cole offer you a reward? What made you decide to act against hotel policy? She pushed through them, saying nothing, and made it to her car. But as she drove away, she saw her face on someone's phone screen. The story had gone viral. At her apartment, she found more reporters waiting. She managed to get inside and lock the door, but her phone wouldn't stop ringing. Unknown numbers, all wanting her story. Then a familiar number appeared. Sarah, Ethan's temporary assistant. Naomi? Mr. Cole heard about what's happening at the hotel. He wants to help. There's nothing he can do. I violated policy. That's fact. He's already making calls. Also, there's a car outside your apartment. A black town car. The driver has instructions to bring you to the hospital if you're willing. Naomi peeked through her blinds. Sure enough, a sleek black car was parked outside, the driver standing beside it looking professional and patient. 20 minutes later, she was back in Ethan's hospital room. He was sitting up, looking angry in a way she hadn't seen before. They suspended you? He said without preamble. It's fine. I'll figure something out. It's not fine. You saved my life, and they're punishing you for it. He already had his phone out. I'm calling my lawyers. Ethan, don't. It'll just make things worse. How could it be worse? You might lose your job, and if you interfere, it'll look like I saved you for the reward. Like I had ulterior motives. He paused, understanding dawning. You're worried about your reputation. I'm worried about my integrity. My grandmother always said that's all we really have. Your grandmother was right. But Naomi, there has to be something I can do. Before she could answer, The door opened and Richard Blackwood entered again, this time alone. He looked between them, his expression calculating. "Ms. Carter, we meet again." "Richard, I told you." Ethan started. "Relax, Ethan. I'm here to apologize." He turned to Naomi. "I was rude yesterday. You saved a valuable asset. I mean, you saved Ethan's life. The company owes you a debt. I don't want anything from the company. Everyone wants something. But that's not why I'm here." He pulled out an envelope. "This is a letter from the board of directors to the Grand Ridge Resort. It expresses our extreme displeasure with how they're treating the woman who saved our CEO's life. It also mentions that we were planning to book the entire hotel for our annual conference, a booking worth approximately $2 million, but are reconsidering given their apparent lack of judgment." Naomi stared at him. That's blackmail." "It's business," Richard corrected. "The hotel can choose to punish you and lose our business, or they can make the smart choice. I don't want to get my job back through threats." "Then you're naive. This is how the world works, Ms. Carter. Power, money talk. Everything else is just noise." "Richard, enough," Ethan said. "Naomi, you don't have to accept this." "But she should," Richard continued, "because tomorrow that disciplinary hearing is going to happen. And without this letter, they're going to fire you. With it, they're going to apologize and probably promote you." He set the envelope on the bedside table. "Your choice." He left, and Naomi stared at the envelope like it might bite her. "I hate that he's right," Ethan said quietly. "I hate that this is how my world works." "Is he right, though? That without that letter, I'll be fired." "Probably. Thompson is covering his ass. He needs someone to blame." Naomi picked up the envelope, feeling its weight. "If I use this, I'm no better than them. Using power to get what I want. You're using power to correct an injustice. That's different, is it?" They sat in silence for a moment, then Ethan spoke. "There's another option." "What?" "Take my job offer. Leave the hotel. Let them fire you if they want. It won't matter because you'll have a better position. One where you're valued for your judgment, not punished for it." "Ethan, I know it's a big change. But Naomi, you're wasted cleaning hotel rooms. You have instincts, intelligence, courage. You could do so much more. As your assistant, as whatever you want to be, I need someone I trust. Someone who sees through the bullshit and isn't afraid to call me on mine. The title doesn't matter." Naomi's phone buzzed. It was her brother, David, calling from college. "I should take this," she said. "Naomi," David's voice was excited. "I just saw the news. You're famous. You saved that tech guy." "David, my roommates are freaking out. You're trending on Twitter." "It's complicated, David." "What's complicated?" "You're a hero." His voice softened. "Mom and Dad will be so proud. Grandma, too." After she hung up, Ethan was watching her. "Your brother?" "Yeah, he's excited. Thinks I'm some kind of hero." "You are. I'm just someone who couldn't look away." She stood, picking up the envelope. "I need to think about all of this. The job offer, the letter, everything. Take all the time you need. But Naomi, whatever you decide, don't let them make you feel small for doing the right thing. The world needs more people who can't look away." That evening, back in her apartment, Naomi sat at her kitchen table with the envelope in front of her. Rosa had come over with Chinese takeout and wine. "So let me get this straight," Rosa said, pouring them both generous glasses. "The Millionaire offered you a job. His board is basically threatening the hotel if they fire you. And you're sitting here agonizing about what to do? It's not that simple. Girl, it's exactly that simple. You take the job, leave that toxic hotel, and start a better life. But if I take his job, it looks like I saved him for the reward. Who cares what it looks like? You know the truth." "Ikare." Rosa studied her. "You really like him, don't you? This isn't just about the job." Naomi didn't answer, but her silence was telling. "Oh, honey," Rosa said softly, "you fell for the Millionaire?" "I didn't fall for the Millionaire. I see who he could be. Under all that money and power, there's a decent person who's lost and lonely and needs someone to remind him that life is about more than stock prices. And you want to be that someone? I want to help him, yes. But not as an employee, not as someone he pays. That's not real. So what do you do?" Naomi looked at the envelope again. Tomorrow, she would face the disciplinary hearing. She would have to decide whether to use Richard's letter whether to accept Ethan's offer, whether to fight or walk away. But tonight, she just wanted to sit with her friend, drink wine, and pretend her life hadn't completely changed in the span of a week. Tomorrow would come soon enough, and with it, decisions that would alter everything. The private dining room in Ethan's penthouse suite at the Grand Ridge Resort felt surreal to Naomi. Just 2 weeks ago, she'd been cleaning this very room, and now she sat across from Ethan at an elegantly set table, the Denver skyline glittering beyond the windows. He'd been discharged from the hospital 3 days earlier, against medical advice, but with a full-time nurse and strict conditions. "You shouldn't be here," Naomi said, accepting the glass of water he poured for her. "You should be home, resting." "This is where it all started," Ethan replied, his color much better though he still moved carefully. "Besides, I wanted to do this properly, away from hospitals and board members and reporters." The disciplinary hearing had been a disaster that turned into a triumph. Thompson had been ready to fire her when Richard's letter arrived by courier, along with something unexpected, a full investigation report from Ethan's security team. It revealed that several other guests had complained about feeling unwell during their stays, symptoms that were dismissed as altitude sickness. Naomi's actions had prompted a review that uncovered a ventilation problem affecting the penthouse level, potentially saving future lives. The hotel board had not only reinstated her, but offered her a promotion to guest services manager. She turned it down. "I still can't believe you rejected their offer," Ethan said, cutting into his salmon with careful precision. His appetite had returned, though he ate slowly. "It was guilt money. They didn't want me. They wanted to avoid a lawsuit. So what will you do now?" "I don't know. My brother's tuition is due next month, and my savings won't cover it." Ethan set down his fork. "Naomi, we need to talk about something. Something I discovered while I was in the hospital." His tone had changed, becoming serious, almost grim. He pulled out a folder from beside his chair, placing it on the table between them. "After my embolism, the doctors ran extensive tests. They found something unusual in my blood work, traces of a substance that shouldn't have been there." "What kind of substance?" "A pharmaceutical compound that, in small doses over time, can increase clotting factors, make someone prone to embolisms." He opened the folder, revealing medical reports and test results. "Someone was poisoning me, Naomi." Slowly, carefully, but deliberately. Naomi's hand flew to her mouth. "Who would do that?" "That's what my security team has been investigating. The compound was in my private supplement bottles, the ones only my inner circle had access to." He pulled out another document. 3 people could have done it. Richard, who wanted me pushed out so he could take over the CEO position. Michael, my former assistant, who was selling information to our competitors. Or, he paused, seeming to struggle with the words. Or, Naomi prompted. Or James Thornton, my personal physician and supposed friend for the last 5 years. He's been managing my health supplements, insisted I take them religiously. Ethan's voice turned bitter. He's also been having an affair with my ex-fiancée, though he didn't know I knew. Oh, Ethan. The investigators think it was James. He had the medical knowledge, the access, and the motive if I died or became incapacitated. He stood to inherit a medical research foundation I'd set up. I named him as director in my will, never thinking your friend would try to kill you. The police are involved now. James has disappeared, probably fled the country. Ethan looked at her intently. But here's the thing, Naomi. If you hadn't acted when you did, his plan would have worked. The embolism would have been blamed on my lifestyle, my stubbornness. No one would have run those extra tests that found the poison. You're saying I didn't just save your life from the embolism. You exposed a murder attempt. You saved me in more ways than one. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of this revelation settling between them. Then Ethan reached across the table, taking her hand. I've rewritten my will, he said quietly. Cut out everyone who was in it before. The investigation made me realize I was surrounded by vultures, people who saw me as a means to an end. Ethan, you must have someone. I do now. He squeezed her hand. You, if you'll let me. Before Naomi could respond, the suite door burst open. Michael stood there, disheveled and wild-eyed, clearly drunk. "Thought you could just fire me," he slurred, stumbling into the room. "After everything I've done for you?" Ethan stood, moving protectively in front of Naomi. "Michael, you need to leave. Security is on their way up." "Security?" Michael laughed bitterly. "Always hiding behind someone else. You know what your problem is, Ethan? You think you're better than everyone. But you're not. You're just a lonely, pathetic man who'll die alone. You're drunk. Leave now, and we'll forget this happened." "Forget? Like you forgot 5 years of loyalty." Michael's eyes landed on Naomi. "And you, the heroic maid. You think you've won something here? He'll use you up and throw you away like he does everyone." "That's enough," Naomi said, standing. "You need to go." "Or what? You'll save him again." Michael pulled something from his pocket, a small recording device. "I've got everything recorded. Every shady deal, every corner cut. I could destroy your precious company, Ethan." "Then do it," Ethan said calmly. "Release it all. I don't care anymore." Michael's face went slack with shock. "You what?" "I said I don't care. Destroy the company if you want. I've realized there are things more important than stock prices and market share." "You're bluffing." "Try me." Security arrived then, 2 large men who efficiently escorted a protesting Michael out. But not before he threw the recording device at Ethan's feet. "You'll regret this," he shouted as they dragged him away. "Both of you." After they were gone, Ethan picked up the device, examined it, then tossed it in the trash. "You're really not worried about what's on there?" Naomi asked. "Oh, I'm sure there are things that could hurt the company. I haven't always been ethical in my business practices. But you know what? I'm tired of living in fear of exposure. If it comes out, I'll deal with the consequences." "That's a big change from a man who wouldn't see a doctor because of stock prices." "Almost dying changes you," he said, echoing her words from days earlier. "So does discovering the people you trusted were trying to kill you." He moved back to the table, but stumbled slightly. Naomi caught his arm, steadying him. "You're still recovering. You should rest." "In a moment. There's something else I need to tell you." He reached into his jacket pocket, pulling out an envelope. "This came for you today, addressed to my office." Naomi opened it, finding an official-looking letter from a law firm. As she read, her eyes widened. This is from your Aunt Patricia's estate," she said, confused. "She left me money?" "What?" Ethan looked genuinely surprised. "Let me see." The letter explained that Patricia Morrison, who had passed away 6 months earlier, had left Naomi $50,000 in her will, along with a note. "For the young woman at the Grand Ridge who was kind to me when no one else noticed I was struggling. You saw me. Thank you. I remember her," Naomi whispered. "She stayed here last year. She was alone, recently widowed. I spent extra time with her just talking. I didn't know she was wealthy," Ethan finished. Patricia Morrison was old Colorado money. She could have stayed anywhere, but she chose the Grand Ridge. He looked at Naomi with something like awe. "You really do see people, don't you? Even when they're trying to be invisible. Everyone deserves to be seen. I love you." The words hung in the air between them. Ethan looked as surprised as Naomi felt, as if the declaration had escaped without his permission. "I'm sorry," he started to say, but Naomi stopped him. "Don't apologize for that. Never apologize for that." "But you don't. I mean, You're not my anything," Naomi said. "Not my employer, not my responsibility. You're just Ethan, and I think I love you too." He kissed her then, soft and tentative, as if afraid she might disappear. When they pulled apart, both were breathless. "So what happens now?" Naomi asked. Now we figure out how to build something real. No employer-employee dynamic, no power imbalance. Just us." "I like the sound of that." A knock at the door interrupted them. Sarah entered, looking apologetic. "Mr. Cole, I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's been a development. James Thornton has been arrested at the Canadian border. The police want to know if you'll press charges." Ethan looked at Naomi, then back at Sarah. "Yes, full charges. He tried to kill me." "There's more," Sarah continued. "The board is meeting tomorrow. Richard Blackwood is trying to force a vote of no confidence, claiming you're emotionally compromised." "Let him," Ethan said. "Schedule a press conference for tomorrow afternoon. It's time to tell the truth about everything." 6 months later, Naomi stood at the podium in the grand ballroom of the Four Seasons, looking out at an audience of nearly 500 people. The See Them Foundation launch event had drawn healthcare professionals, business leaders, and media from across the country. She spotted Ethan in the front row, giving her an encouraging smile. "My grandmother used to say that God gave us eyes to see and hands to help," Naomi began, her voice steady despite her nerves. "6 months ago, I was a housekeeper who noticed something others missed. Today, we're launching a foundation that will train healthcare and hospitality workers to recognize the signs of pulmonary embolism and deep vein thrombosis. Because sometimes, seeing what others miss can save a life." The applause was warm and genuine. As she continued her speech, talking about the foundation's goals and the screening programs they would implement, she thought about how much had changed. The press conference Ethan had called had been explosive. He'd revealed everything: the poisoning attempt, the toxic culture in his company, his own near-death experience. The stock had initially plummeted, just as he'd predicted. But then something unexpected happened. The transparency, the vulnerability, the human story behind the corporate facade had resonated. New investors came forward, drawn to a CEO who valued life over profits. The company had not only survived, but thrived under Ethan's new leadership approach. Richard Blackwood had been voted off the board. Michael had tried to sell his recordings to competitors, but found no takers. Ethan's public confession had rendered them worthless. James Thornton was serving 15 years for attempted murder. As for Naomi and Ethan, they'd taken things slowly. She'd insisted on maintaining her independence, using Patricia Morrison's inheritance to pay off her brother's tuition and start taking business classes herself. She didn't work for Ethan, but with him as co-founder of the foundation. The medical community estimates that up to 900,000 Americans are affected by blood clots each year. Naomi continued her speech. Many of these cases could be prevented or caught earlier with proper awareness. That's what we're here to change. After her speech, the reception was in full swing when Rosa found her, champagne in hand. "Look at you, giving speeches to rich people," Rosa teased. "Remember when you were just a quiet girl who noticed too much?" "I'm still that girl," Naomi said, "just with a bigger platform and a millionaire boyfriend." "That too," Naomi laughed. David appeared, now graduated and working for a tech startup. "Sis, that was amazing. Mom and Dad would be so proud." "Grandma too," Naomi added, touching the small locket she wore with her grandmother's picture. Dr. Rebecca Sterling approached, the physician who'd treated Ethan. "Naomi, wonderful speech. I wanted to tell you, we've already had 3 cases this month where nurses caught DVT early because of the training program you started at Denver Presbyterian. 3 lives saved. That's incredible." "It's just the beginning," Dr. Sterling said. "What you and Ethan are building here, it's going to change how we approach patient care." As the evening wound down, Naomi found herself on the balcony, looking out at the Denver skyline. Ethan joined her, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "You were brilliant tonight," he said. "I was terrified. It didn't show." He paused, then added, "I have something for you." He handed her a small velvet box. Inside was not a ring, as she'd half expected, but a key. "What's this?" "The key to the new foundation headquarters. The building went through today. It's ours. I mean the foundation's." "Ethan, that must have cost. Consider it an investment in saving lives. Besides, I've learned that money is just a tool. It's what you do with it that matters. You have changed. You changed me. You saw who I could be before I did." They stood together in comfortable silence. Then Ethan spoke again. "There's going to be a new guest at the Grand Ridge next week. A senator who's been looking pale and tired in recent photos. I thought maybe you could." "No, Naomi laughed. I'm retired from secretly monitoring hotel guests." "But what if? Then someone else will have to see what others miss. I've got my hands full with you." A year later, the foundation had expanded to 20 cities. The Grand Ridge Resort had become the first hotel in the country to have all staff trained in DVT recognition. Tom Thompson, who'd once tried to fire Naomi, now proudly displayed a plaque commemorating the hotel's role in saving Ethan Cole's life. The wedding was small, just family and close friends, held in the hospital chapel where Ethan had recovered. Dr. Sterling officiated. She'd gotten ordained online just for the occasion. "Do you remember?" Ethan said in his vows. You once told me that everyone deserves someone caring about them. You became that someone for me when I'd given up on deserving anything. You saw past the money, the power, the walls I'd built, and found something worth saving. You save yourself, Naomi replied in hers. I just reminded you that you were worth saving. And you reminded me that caring too much isn't a flaw. It's a gift. Rosa was the maid of honor, David the best man. The reception was held in the hospital cafeteria, transformed with flowers and lights, with patients and staff invited to celebrate. It was unconventional, unexpected, and perfect. 3 years later, Naomi walked through the Grand Ridge Resort again, this time as a guest. She was there for a medical conference, presenting the Foundation's latest research on early detection. The hotel had changed, more diverse staff, better training programs, a whole new culture of care. She recognized the young woman cleaning her room, Maria, who'd been a junior housekeeper during Ethan's crisis. Mrs. Cole, Maria said, surprised. I didn't know you were staying here. Just for the conference. How are things? Different. Better. We have regular health checks now, and they actually listen when we raise concerns about guests. Maria paused. You changed everything, you know. Not just for Mr. Cole, but for all of us. You showed us that we matter, that what we see matters. That evening, Naomi stood in the penthouse suite where it had all begun. Ethan was in Tokyo, closing a deal that would fund free DVT screening in underserved communities. They'd learned to balance their lives, their work, their love. Her phone buzzed with a text from him. Saw a businessman on the plane rubbing his calf. Made sure he knew the signs. You've turned me into you. She smiled, texting back. Good. The world needs more people who can't look away. As she gazed out at the mountains, Naomi thought about the journey from that first morning when she'd noticed a limping millionaire to now. She'd saved more than Ethan's life that day. She'd saved his soul, and he'd given her purpose beyond what she'd imagined possible. The next morning, checking out of the hotel, she noticed a man in an expensive suit favoring his left leg as he walked to the elevator. She hesitated for just a moment, then approached him. Excuse me, sir. I don't mean to intrude, but I notice you're limping. Have you had that checked? He looked annoyed at first. Then something in her expression made him pause. It's just been sore since my flight from London. Long flights can cause blood clots. There's a free screening clinic 2 blocks away. The Symptom Foundation runs it. It would take 10 minutes to check. I have meetings, so did someone I knew. He almost died because meetings seemed more important. 10 minutes could save your life. The man studied her for a moment, then nodded. All right, 10 minutes. As Naomi watched him leave for the clinic, she smiled. She might not be cleaning rooms anymore, but she was still taking care of people, still seeing what others missed. And sometimes that made all the difference. The Foundation's latest report showed that their training programs had contributed to identifying over 3,000 cases of DVT early, potentially saving hundreds of lives. Each case was a reminder that one person paying attention, one person caring enough to speak up, could change everything. Ethan liked to say that Naomi had saved him, but she knew the truth was more complex. They'd saved each other. He'd given her the platform to make a difference on a scale she'd never imagined. She'd given him a reason to live beyond spreadsheets and stock prices. Standing in the hotel lobby one last time, Naomi remembered her grandmother's words. Baby, God gave you eyes to see and hands to help. Don't waste either gift. She hadn't wasted them. She'd used them to build something beautiful from a moment of crisis, love from an act of compassion, and purpose from the simple inability to look away when someone needed help. The girl who noticed too much had become the woman who changed everything, one overlooked symptom, one saved life, one act of caring at a time. What signs of struggle are you walking past every day, and whose life could change if you simply chose to see them, really see them? If this story touched your heart, please like and subscribe for more powerful stories that remind us of the extraordinary impact of ordinary compassion.